and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Where we cover everything big and small in the world of Dynamics business applications. Good morning, good afternoon.
Happy holidays to you, Max. How are
Happy
things?
holidays indeed. Yeah, it's hard to believe that they're almost here and that we are almost through with 2024.
Right? And basically, one more week until the days start getting longer. I am ready for more daylight.
That is a very good point. I didn't even think about that. I mean, yeah, I log on, it's dark out. I log off, and
Log.
it's dark out.
Exactly. It's time for more light in this world.
Got a nice little window so I can at least see the sunlight while I spend the day inside.
Yeah. Well, what do you got for a dad joke for me today?
I like to make it, usually pretty seasonal. So if I
Of
do the
course, of course.
same. So, all right, you pull it up. Why was E the only letter in the alphabet to get presents?
You got me.
Because the rest of the letters were not E.
Naughty. Oh, very good. Very good. I like it. So mine's really simple. It's just been freaking cold around here for the last week here in Minnesota. So mine's a little bit more of a seasonal cold joke. So, what does rain say once it gets too cold outside?
Oh, snow.
What the hail? That kind of tickled me. Uh, Anyway, we'll go
Wow.
back with a little content now, I think, and share with everybody what's going on in Power Platform world as we jump in.
Yeah, we got just a little bit to cover.
Just a little bit. So, as most of you know, we have had 2 weeks more than just a regular fortnight, so 2 fortnights. And in that 2 fortnight period, we not only had some normal type announcements, but Ignite happened. So there's lots of kind of activity telling everyone what we are up to. And I'm going to try to cover this really fast and just hit the high points, but you've got lots of links you can read through if you haven't been inundated already with information about what's going on. So one of the most important things from a security standpoint is customer managed key support has worked at the Dataverse layer for a long time to help work on all that Dataverse data and everything going on in your model driven apps that's stored there. But it didn't always affect what was going on elsewhere in other tools that are in your environment, like Power Automate Cloud Flows. Well, it is now fully supported all up and down the stack. If you enable a customer managed key, it will apply to all existing flows, all new flows. It all just works. So big news if you've been waiting on using Power Automate at scale until those customer managed encryption keys could protect all of that as well. Copilot Studio has had tons of innovation, so I'm just going to hit some of the high points. So some of this has not turned on yet. So the advanced tuning capabilities and bringing some of the other third-party sources in that got talked about have not landed yet in the production version, at least in the North American tenants. But that's coming soon. Azure AI capabilities with being able to use Azure AI Search is there. It's in preview, but it works. Autonomous agents to be able to just be triggered based on data changing or an email being received or things like that without having to involve Power Automate and just let that event kick off the execution of what your agent goes and does on your behalf. All there. Feel free to play with that in preview. Multimodal we have had for quite a while in Copilot Studio, but it has been enhanced quite a bit. So anything you're wanting to do with voice, especially around your IVR capability, time to test out what's there and see what's new. This Agents SDK is a pretty big deal. It's there to enhance what used to be there only in direct line interfaces and in the skills framework. And this new SDK sort of pluses that up quite a bit, and it can access Copilot Studio agents as well as all of the stuff that you build in code. But it's a code first way of approaching all of these things. So it's not really for your non-developer type, but it is a big deal to allow all of this orchestration to call the appropriate kind of worker agents at the right times to orchestrate experiences that you would like to pull together from a bunch of different worker capabilities, whether that was built in low code or built in pro code. We've turned on some of the new analytics. There's still more to come about what goes on in Copilot Studio, especially on the individual conversation layer as you're trying to build and test, which makes that a little easier to troubleshoot and understand what happened when you're trying to make changes in your agents. I'm sure most people are aware you can build your agents directly in Microsoft 365 with a simplified experience starting right from BizChat or right in SharePoint and some of those kind of things. Wonderful capabilities. The Copilot control system is really mostly around all the M365 Copilot capabilities and what's going on in SharePoint and the M365 Copilot, but it's a wonderful step forward. Copilot Studio is affected a little bit. And I'm actually not going to click into any of the rest of this because it's just blowing out what we've already walked through. So that's a little run through some of the Copilot Studio awesomeness that has been turned on. Power Pages also got infused with even more AI and Copilot capabilities. So one is just that in the overarching Maker Studio that it has been enhanced with new models and new capabilities for just creating your Power Pages site as it gets started for what should be there. AI Insights for Power Pages is a really nice new feature to try to help the maker understand how to drop insightful information directly onto the page without having to go develop all of it as a bespoke thing and then put it on there. This is the streamlined portal creation I was just talking about. We've done quite a little bit in the Power Platform Admin Center to make sure that all of the things related to Power Pages can be viewed there and actually have a lot of action taken there, especially around a lot of the security controls. We've had a very kind of disjointed experience of some things being in PPAC, some things being in the Power Pages management app, some things being right in the Creator Studio, and that's still going to be there for sure in the Power Platform Admin Center and in the Creator Studio, but we're bringing a lot of the capabilities that used to require going off into these other places into the Power Platform Admin Center for admins to be able to look across those environments, turn on security features, enable other capabilities that need to be toggled on or off, all that kind of stuff for capabilities without having to leave PPAC. So that's a beautiful thing, including just looking at all the telemetry of what's going on across the tenant, not just on any given site. So lots of great stuff in the Power Pages world, and we'll see quite a few Power Pages updates as we move throughout all of these blog posts. Power Apps also has some really nice things going on, so it's probably no surprise to any of you that the plan designer that allows you to describe in natural language what you're wanting for an app and have it jump over and start asking you a few questions and constructing like user stories and build your data model in Dataverse and stitch together either your model driven or your Canvas app and have documentation of all of the things that it's trying to do and security roles needed and all that kind of stuff. That's all in full-on public preview. It was in private preview for a while, but that is there. It's being rolled out currently, so if you're not seeing it just at the make.powerapps.com experience, go to make.preview.powerapps.com, and you should see it in all of your environments, even in North America at this point. I'm not sure it's made it all the way through GCC. I don't have access to a GCC tenant, but if it hasn't made it, it will show up one of these days once it's been approved by all the powers that be in the government. We can create AI agents right from the Power Apps Maker portal, so that's a big deal. We can also do all sorts of interesting things, and this is more at the overall Power Platform tenant administration layer, and Power Apps just gets to play as pieces of this, but we have really joined together security concepts into a managed security platform, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later in the show, and a managed operations platform. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means a little later in the show as well. But making it much easier to have centralized ways to look at security across all of the assets in your tenant, and the same thing for how to take things that you're making in non-production environments and have operational best practices of getting them into production. So the rest of this is just blowing out those concepts. So take a look at some of the videos and all those kind of things to get even more updates. Empower Automate, there's more goodness, and we'll see a couple of articles about one of the big steps forward is the document processing model, which has been around for a while. It started as document intelligence and then document processing, and now it's document processing with GPT. It's our kind of fourth iteration of this, and it is even more powerful, even more flexible, does an even better job of OCR because we've updated those OCR models under the covers and all kinds of great stuff to try to make this turnkey low-code experience very, very powerful and easy to work with. We've also put Copilot into the expression builder to make it easier to build expressions. So that's a really helpful feature. And the automation center inside of the Power Automate Maker console, so make.powerautomate.microsoft.com, has this automation center, which has all sorts of great stuff about telemetry of what's going on and recommendations for what things you might do to enhance what's going on in your Power Automate world, to looking at a tenant level view of all of your cloud flows or your desktop flows, so that you don't have to go to each individual flow in each individual environment to see run history and that kind of stuff. So really nice features that you don't even have to turn on things like application insights in order to get a lot of this telemetry is now right here in the make.powerautomate.com maker portal. On our desktop flow side of things, if you use our new capability to stitch together these desktop flows and make sure that it is using the UI automations and the browser automations and not just images of things, but if it's using that where it's kind of reading what's going on the desktop or reading what's going on in the browser HTML, that now has self-repair as one of the things that you can do. And it will detect when a problem has been encountered by the robot trying to perform the automation on the desktop, and it will suggest what might fix that problem right in line of the execution. And this can work with attended or unattended flows, believe it or not. On the unattended side, that blows me away, but it's pretty cool that it can do it. So that's a little bit about what's going on in the world of Power Automate. So I talked that we were going to go into a little more depth on the managed security. So the managed security is putting a lot more at your fingertips right in the PPAC and a little bit as in some of the maker portals as well. But we've kind of broken this down into various areas. So on the threat protection side, we've made it pretty easy to see from across all of your environments, where are we seeing some of the audit events that need to be looked at. And so some of that auditing happens in Purview and some of it happens right in PPAC. And we highly encourage everyone to use our new integration that's really easy to turn on right from PPAC to actually start depositing a lot richer telemetry into the Sentinel tool so that you can actually query it with all the rest of your data coming into Sentinel, and you get more events and richer data when you make that connection from your Power Platform environments as well. In the privacy world, we've done a lot with making sure that almost all of our assets, all the connectors, all the Dataverse plugins, all the Copilot Studio integrations all support VNet integration if you need to keep everything on your private networks that are going on across our cloud infrastructure. We got data masking rules that can be applied just about anywhere in Power Platform, especially on Dataverse things. Customer managed keys. We've done more things with identity and access management and made it easier, including this capability that we've only had for a little while in managed environments. In fact, there's stuff that's just rolling out. But in managed environments, we've had the ability, probably for the last 6 months or a little bit more than that, to manage the sharing feature for Canvas Power Apps so that you can limit it to like no groups and only individuals and no more than 5 individuals for all non-production environments or whatever else you might want to do. But we didn't have that taking into consideration things like cloud flows or Copilot Studio agents. Well, all of those things, the cloud flows and the Copilot Studio agents are now coming into that managed environment limitation of sharing capabilities. So big deal. We've made all of the auditing easier to find and easier to turn on and manage right from the centralized console of one spot, including, I don't think it's in this particular blog post, but there is one coming up where we can manage a lot of the AI features in especially Copilot Studio, but really just at that environment level in a single AI pane that allows that to be something that's easier to get to without having to go environment by environment and stitch through the long laundry list of all the features in order to toggle on and off the right things. So anyway, I've blabbed on long enough about that. The managed operations capability is really taking what we have already been doing in our ALM space and bringing it together in ways that make it really easy to use the tools that you would like to, and continuing to invest in the pipelines capability that's built right into Power Platform to make that even more seamless and even more capable, but to allow you to use Azure DevOps or use the capabilities in GitHub Online with GitHub Actions, or even just use the capabilities that are in the CLI to make your own scripts and use those wherever you want, whether you're using Jenkins or Octopus or whatever else for your deployment orchestration, that you can do all of those kind of things. And we have also tried to make sure that as we think about this, that we're logging all the things that you may care about in monitoring of what's happening on these operations that don't have a dependency necessarily on App Insights or a data lake, that you can see things right in the monitoring tools that are built in to our admin center, and we'll watch all of these deployments that are going on. I think most of that monitoring is really for our pipelines operations instead of some of those things that would have to be relied on by third parties, but lots of pretty cool stuff. Ways to also get in and manage things like backup retention and do self-service disaster recovery testing, or actually failing over, or making sure that you've configured your recycle bin so that you have at least a 28-day period to recover records that may have been deleted, whether it was malicious or accidental, and configure long-term retention to take data on whatever schedule you determine is right and take it from live Dataverse and put it into a long-term cold storage in Azure, which will still be available in the UI of your model-driven apps. So lots of pretty cool stuff out there. This post is really a recap of all of the things that I just talked about, but I'm just going to run through it really quick just to remind you. Copilot Studio has lots of things with the autonomous agents, with the developer capabilities, lots of cool stuff on the security and governance management on the Copilot Studio side and everywhere else in what we do. In Power Apps, we can, again, build agents right from the Power Apps console. We've got some customer stories in there. The plan designer we've talked about. Pay-as-you-go with Copilot Studio, haven't talked about yet. It's a different licensing model that makes it a little easier when you're first starting with Copilot Studio and you deploy a bot. If you don't want to pay the $200 and then have a pack of 25,000 messages that you can consume from and buy additional packs, that is still the least expensive way to do things, is to buy the appropriate number of message packs. But if you would prefer to start just saying, I'm going to tie whatever I deploy from an agent's perspective to an Azure subscription and just get charged the fraction of a penny per conversation as it happens, and I'll watch the telemetry. And whenever I start seeing the quantity of messages on my particular deployed bots go above what sort of makes sense to pay as I go, and start buying some of those message packs, that you can do exactly that. And if you decide to buy and allocate message packs to the agents that are operating as pay-as-you-go, then it will consume from the message packs first and then only go to pay-as-you-go for overages over and above that. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to include now in the Copilot Studio world, similar to what we've been able to do in the Power Apps world with being able to give access to apps and to do things in Dataverse to consume either storage or API limits if we were starting to encounter some of those, and all the other great things that have been enabled with pay-as-you-go. I think that's enough of a run through that one. On Power Pages, there's a new API developers can use that will understand the content of a page, especially the Dataverse views and tables and security model that has been put onto a page, and allow you to summarize an entire page through an API if you need to then use that somewhere else on your page and just have a little summary of what somebody is seeing show up somewhere. Advisor is part of the functionality of the PPAC, the Power Platform Admin Center, and Advisor has lots of new things that are recommendations for Power Pages specifically, like your tool is still running on our old data model, and when you could transition to the new enhanced data model for better scalability and performance, or that you're using a Bootstrap version that is not as up to date, and that if you would like the capabilities and faster speeds of the new Bootstrap version, it will detect that and help you look at migration strategies. It'll also look across a lot of security components and help surface not only that you have things that aren't as secure as you could make them, but suggestions and one-click deployment capabilities to go take action to enhance that security. You can shut down sites, you can enable WAFs, you can do all sorts of things, all from this advisor capability built right in and looking at all of your Power Pages capabilities. When making Power Pages, right on the Maker portal, when making a page, that you can use Copilot in quite a few capabilities to help make the page creation, not just the site creation, quite a little bit easier using natural language. Copilot Hub is one of the things I was telling you a little bit about that shows up now in the Power Platform Admin Center in the new version. And it gives you not only a lot of great information about telemetry of where Copilot's being used across our various services, but the ability to go sort of take action and make some changes to things and see, especially things like if you were wanting to change Copilot settings, that for the various things that are available in Power Platform that are Copilot/AI enabled, that you can go change settings in one spot right here in the PPAC without having to like go to the specific environment and go into settings and go into features and all the other things before you could start toggling some of these. And it will only show you the AI settings in a very nice, concise control in order to make those changes. So pretty nice there. It's also very obfuscated in most places, and I don't think there's actually a image of this, but right beneath all of this stuff that says governance and kind of showing you what's turned on and not turned on across the services, there's another little widget at the bottom of the Copilot page that talks about when content moderation has kicked in and whether it blocked the action or not because of content moderation policies. So that's a big deal. And it also talks about which policy that it violated in the graph. Now, unfortunately, you can't click in and see the detail of what was asked, but you can at least see a graph that shows how many times content moderation was kicked off and whether it was a prompt injection or whether it was using language that was inappropriate or had, whatever phrase used that it didn't think was safe. And so you get some telemetry anyway about when that stuff's happening, which was always completely under the covers. And I always just wondered, well, why didn't the bot respond this time? I thought my question was okay, but this will at least let me know that a content moderation violation happened in that reporting. So good stuff. If you are a Power Apps component framework maker, this is generally available now, and we have capabilities for both React and Fluent-based ECFs. Worth taking a quick look at just to make sure that you understand all the things that are generally available and how to think about them. So take advantage. I don't think there's anything particularly new here. Clay always does a fantastic job of summarizing what's going on, but I guess formula creation in app in the Maker portal for Power Apps is also new, that when you need a formula to do something, you can just ask Copilot to write it for you. Just describe it and it'll just take off and do it. So that's another nice enhancement for the makers. We're making a few changes to the studio to make it even more visually appealing and easier to use, faster to operate, and which includes the new analysis engine. Just a reminder, Canvas apps are going to move to this as on by default in February. So if you're not getting used to the new analysis engine and doing tests on all of your existing Canvas apps, you probably should. It makes the maker experience significantly better and more accurate. It finds more things and it's way faster at loading on the page when you're in the maker experience. When you're in the worker use of an agent, it doesn't make any difference because the analysis engine isn't even working at that point. The app's just functioning. But anyway, be ready for that and do some testing. If you're not familiar with what I am talking about, that there's quite a bit of documentation, and I think there are some reminders in the overall M365 Message Center about this capability. So go get ready for it. Smart Paste, if you haven't seen it, is a beautiful thing. It's not only there for model-driven app forms, but it is also there for Canvas app forms, and you can just copy data from wherever you find it and paste it onto the screen just by hitting Control V or the right click of the mouse, and it will figure out with whatever is on your clipboard where that belongs on the screen. And you can now also do that with documents. So you can just drag a PDF or drag an Excel doc or drag a Word doc onto the form, and it can understand the contents of what's in that document and put whatever's in there on your screen as well. So make form filling much, much simpler if you have a good place to go grab at least some of the data. And of course, it will let you overwrite whatever it put on there, decide, nope, it got it completely wrong, just don't include that at all those things before you hit save. So lots of good stuff. I'm getting closer, Max. There are a slew of pre-built agents in Copilot Studio that are templates, and it's worth running through this list. I'm not even going to click on it, but it's worth taking a look at just to understand if any of those pre-built great templates will help you get to a starting point that makes sense faster. The licensing clarification for managed environments, this is actually the way I read the licensing all along, but it's great that it is explicitly clarified now that the only requirement for a managed environment functionality in full form is that every user that is a member of that managed environment has to have a license type of some kind that is one of the premium entitlements. So it can be a Power Automate premium license, it can be a Power Apps premium license, or it can be any of our Dynamics 365 full-fledged licenses, probably except team member. I don't think it includes those rights, but all the other ones should, to allow the users that have one of those license types assigned to their user to be able to use any of the managed environments in the tenant. So that's kind of the only thing that if you have a managed environment that you've tried to make managed that has users that are not yet premium licensed in any form or fashion, that those users won't be able to use that environment. The sharing limits I talked about earlier, I'm not going to talk any more about it, but there are better ways to do the sharing limits and have that be aware of more things like Cloud Flows and Copilot Studio things, not just Canvas app things. The Automation Center that I talked about, this is a nice Learn article that tells you a lot more in detail about all the things that you can do in that Automation Center that's in the Maker portal of Power Automate, and more detail in the Learn document as well about the document processing model that I talked about. That's a new part of how document processing works and is now in preview. For customer engagement, I've got a few things. So that was just the Power Platform news. In customer engagement for dynamic sales, there are several new sales agents that are going to light up in early 2025. They all been announced, like a nice sort of lead qualification agent or a pipeline management agent, and some of these kind of things that will help users understand how to work in those environments way more efficiently. Well, you can enhance them and customize them in Copilot Studio, and this article tells you a little bit about what they do and how you should think about enhancing them. If you're an email marketer, there's lots of good advice in this. I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about it, but ways to use some new features of the customer insights journeys to look at email heat maps and to look at what device types and things that are going on by the people interacting with your content, what link insights can help you with, and what variation insights look like if you've got variation in the various content that you are putting out there, and what's working better than others, even if you've got things like A/B testing and things like that going on. So good stuff. If you are an email marketer, go read that in detail. And then a little bit more about those sales agents that I had talked about earlier, just in how to think about pipeline optimization and what kinds of things these agents are going to be able to help you do better. So I'm going to leave it at that and say, if you are a sales ops person or a sales leader, you're going to want to know about these agents. And if you're a technical implementer, you're going to want to know how to get them on, how to configure the functionality of them to train them on your terminology and your taxonomy and what's important in the sales going on in your organization, so that they are extremely effective as they land. So enough said. I'll turn it over to you, Max.
Cool. With that, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on everyone in our audience, for as much as you had on the power and customer engagement side, we don't have too much to cover on F&O this week. So I'm not sure if we've got DFF in 2 weeks with the new year coming, but at least during our next DFF, we'll cover a little bit more. But for everything I brought today, I wanted to bring a lot of our Wave 2 items and really call out some attention to some of the key features that I found most interesting and thought would be most useful to everyone here. So of these, there's going to be quite a few that are going GA December, but also a few features that we see coming up soon. So first, within the Business Central realm, have a few different items. So the first piece is going to be a field service integration with Dynamics Field Service. So if you're currently using Business Central, plus you're using Field Service within the Dynamics CE realm, this is a great opportunity to integrate the two. You could have something like work orders, where you're maybe replacing parts of an on-site asset, or replacing maybe the entire asset, doing some additional labor work, and then tying that all back to an invoice. This is all fully automated via the integration. So call that out here. GA for this is going to be coming in February of 25. Next, we have another feature within the Business Central realm. So this is on the sustainability end. So this is increased demo data for sustainability, or refresh demo data. So there's quite a few different features that you can play around with here, like adding a new vendor and also doing item-related carbon credits, work with that, a new ESG example in your financial reports, plus some CO2 equivalent calculations. So if you're getting into the sustainability realm and trying to tie that into your ERP processes, with Business Central, we have some expanded features and capabilities to do that now. And with this refresh demo data, you can get comfortable doing so in your lower tier environments before you start doing so in production. Now, kind of tying off of this, not only do we have the sustainability features here within Business Central, we've also actually got an entire sustainability cloud within the Microsoft realm. Within the sustainability cloud, we have quite a few different features. That includes a fabric solution for ESG, plus quite a few different components to that. But I wanted to bring to the group here Microsoft Sustainability Manager. So this is actually built on top of the Power Platform. This is for any kind of ESG or sustainability resources within your organization. You can capture and run calculations on all of your emissions data. We cover all scopes of emissions, including all 15 aspects of Scope 3. So if you have any need for a sustainability solution, definitely call out looking at Microsoft Sustainability Manager plus the related Sustainability Cloud solutions to help tackle either all of those needs or some key components, whether it's on the reporting or data warehousing end. Next, covering off our top section up here, Microsoft being recognized as a leader in the 2024 Gartner Magic Quadrant for both service-centric and product-centric enterprises. So I'm just going to quickly pull this up and show the graphics. Really to call out attention here because we're really continuing to develop our capabilities with both the service and product-centric sides of the business. On the service-centric side, just a key call out from the F&O space. We have recurring revenue. We're seeing quite a lot of customers using that now, where when you're going and doing any of these service opportunities, you may need to realize revenue on a subscription-based model, or maybe even going back to that field service integration, you have a need there where you've got some service being done by your field service resources that's tying back to transactions within D365. And then also from a product-centric standpoint, calling out here where we're even further seen as both a visionary, as a leader with the ability to execute and completeness of vision. So really just wanted to call this out from a project operations standpoint. We're seeing ourselves continue to drive towards really the top of our marketplace. So moving into finance and supply chain, we first have two features that are kind of tied together. So the first being AI actions for finance and operations, and the second being extending Copilot within finance and operations. So I'll just click this one link and we'll kind of navigate to both from here. So within AI actions, this is going to be going GA in December. So this is the ability to call AI plugins using your finance and operations business logic. So what that means is any method you have written in your X++ code within Dynamics, you can call that using your Copilot capabilities. So instead of having to completely script out Copilot or add a lot of references or Power Automates, you can just call the business logic from within D365 automatically. In addition to those plugins, you also have the ability to extend Copilot using finance and operations with your client actions. So this is also going GA in December. So more plainly what this is we have our generative sidecar within D365 now, where you can get access to your Learn documentation. But in addition to that, you have the ability to extend that using Copilot Studio and maybe add some internal or external knowledge bases. But now you can actually put that into your production environment with this going generally available. Now, for both of these, I want to call out that at the bottom of these links, you do also have this link to extending your Copilot capabilities within finance and operations. So I'm just going to quickly go here and show our creating AI plugins. So just to give a quick vantage to some of our folks here of what these AI plugins can be, I recommend you giving this article here a look. Within this article, there's quite a few different examples of what your plugins might be and what X++ methods you can create. So one example, returning calculated values. An example of this being what is the current balance for a customer. Next, creating, updating, or deleting a record within D365. With an example of that being to create a new task, following up with Contoso. And then finally, performing an action such as approving someone's expense report. So next with those two both going into general availability. And with our third one, we have that going into general availability as well in December. So this is for business performance planning. This is our brand new XP&A feature that's been added via our finance premium licensing. So as part of that XP&A, we have a lot of capabilities in running scenarios and forecasts, plus Power BI visualizations. But you also now have a Copilot capability for generative help, largely in pulling from Microsoft Learn documentation. So if you're using that BPP app, you can go ahead right now and start using Copilot alongside. And then finally, we have just our last piece for today. So this is going a little bit back to one thing that Bart called out in terms of the autonomous agents. So we've got a lot of new agents coming to the D365 realm. I wanted to call out particular attention here to our supplier communications agent. This is going to be coming public preview in February, so we've still got a few months to wait for this. But I think this is going to be one of the more exciting ones. This is going to be really looking at our supplier communications to understand any instances where maybe our supplier has not confirmed back to a purchase order. We need to re-engage or send them a reminder that we need this confirmation. Or if that supplier sends to us a change request, we can take that into consideration with Copilot making those recommendations for us. And at the click of a button, with us approving those changes, we can have that take place within D365. So there's going to be a lot of nice automation and back-end processing running through all of your communications to really ensure that there's nothing that falls between the cracks. With that, I think we've only got one other item, which is not on our list here today, but if you go to our show notes later on, it'll be there. We have entity util. So this is for creating entities within your data warehousing solution. So we have a new Dynamics Bytes conversation, which are small tech talk conversations. There's a 3-part series on creating complex entities within your data warehousing solution utilizing this entity util tool. So if you have any data warehousing needs, recommend giving that a look out as well. But with that, I think we're just a few minutes over for today. Not sure if there's any solution updates that we want to call out before we close off our session.
There's a ton of solution updates as always. So look through the list, and if any of those things are ones that you use and you think you want the latest and greatest functionality, then you ought to click in and hit update in your environments that are important to you. Otherwise, I think the only other thing that is newsworthy, and thanks for actually mentioning it right as you got started in your section, Max, that 2 weeks from now is January 3rd, and that is a date that I'm quite sure many people are not doing as much work as they would be on a normal week. So we're going to bypass having DFF that day and just go a month from now in, what is that, January 10th? Is that right? January 10th is what I have on my
Okay.
calendar anyway as our next DFF date. So look forward to seeing all of you in 2 fortnights, assuming that's when that is. Anyway, that's it from my standpoint.
All right. With that, then we'll see you all in 2 fortnights. Cheers all.
Thanks all.